And I was told not to put pictures of my family on my desk. There's a war, right? There's the people that can't work remote. It's like, shut up. You're working from your pajamas. Don't be a baby, right? But in that moment, I didn't score 100% as an employee, but I score 100% as a mother. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Karol. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Perfect. So today we are continuing the series of videos where I'm asking Karol questions from leaders of remote and hybrid teams, and we think this video will be really useful for you if you manage teams, if you're just new to a managing role, or if you switching from managing people in the office to remote or hybrid management. So our first question today will be, how do I manage employees who prefer different work schedules?
How do you manage a employee that prefer different work schedules? Well, it depends on which context it is, right? So if you have a company that it is a physical location and requires for the store to be open a certain amount of hours. So that will require for you to, one, be very upfront from the beginning. What is the schedule in which you can work so they can adapt to their work life? Or if it's an employer that does not have a client-facing role. So if it's not like a store that is open, for example, retail, which is typically open from 8 to 8, it's very different than when it is a corporate employee working remote. Now, for the sake of, typically the clients that we handle, we do retail, but we also do a lot of remote teams. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on the remote teams. For remote and hybrid teams, the most important thing is understanding why, right? Not in the way that you were gonna ask that employee, like, you either come at the hour that I want you to come or you don't work here anymore. Any employer is an employment at will. Many of them are. When you sign your contract, an employment at will. So very likely that doesn't work for them. They don't have to keep the employee employed. However, if you're trying to create a healthy work environment and a healthy culture, you have to be upfront as to the personal reasons in which you prefer this work schedule. Where is your personal life, whether it's because it works better for you and the commitments you have outside of work. You don't have to tell them what you're doing or who you care for. But whatever that is, just be upfront about it. And as a manager, if you're doing a project role or a remote role or a tech role or whatever industry you're in that does not require a client-facing role where you need to be there physically in person, can pretty much be done anytime. So you as a leader need to identify, it's like, what is it that you need from that employee? There's times that being together and talking and working together makes sense. And there's times where it's just like, I just need the work done. Once it's completed, we can connect after and figure out how the work got done. So for me, what I would recommend is don't focus so much on the hours of work as much as the result. I have this story that someone once told me that I think is super important, where they were talking a little bit about how there was this employee that would get the work done in 4 hours when it took another employee 8 hours. And the employee that took 8 hours was so mad at the employee that took 4 hours, and it felt like it was unfair. But at the end of the day, the problem was with the employee that was doing it for 8 hours, because it was more resentment that they couldn't do it for less time than it was about a moral standard of work. So it's not that, the right amount of time to work is 8 hours. If you don't do it in 8 hours, you're lazy. No, some people spend a lot of time figuring out how to do it in less. So when you start focusing on the hours and start focusing on the work and the quality of the work, your employees will be happier and the results for your work will be better.
I love this point because I always work fast. And then I feel like, when we used to work in the office in my other job, and I was like, what's the point for me to sit 8 hours in front of the laptop when I can just do this job in like 3 hours and be done?
And for me, when you have employees, one, that have figured that out, they're super smart, right? The whole if you in 3 hours, you're lazy. No, they're super smart. They figure out a way to do it faster and different than everybody else. And second, it frees up their time. They're happier. They can do more things whether it's personal or work. If more companies and teams focus more on the work versus the time that it takes them to do the work, they will be better and healthier work cultures.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. Thanks, Kat.
I'm glad you do.
So the second question is, how do I manage remote employees who have children or other caregiving responsibilities?
This one.
Tell me.
This one. I am super passionate about this one, and could be maybe a little bit biased because I am a mother of a 10-year-old, and I am a mother of a 2-year-old, and I have a husband and a company and a job, and like trying to kind of feed all this different people and this different needs for myself. So there's a couple of things. I do want to talk about the employee, and then I also want to talk about like the company. In terms of the company, there should not be an issue with company understanding that people have different roles. You are a mother, you're also an employee, you're also all these different things. There is a stigma for women when it comes to caregiving that men don't get. A lot of people, until COVID happened, didn't realize that men are also fathers and have a wife and have children. And we saw that video online with with the kid coming in the back when the guy was doing reporting in his bedroom, right? Like that was like a big moment that everybody related to, but at the same time is real. And until COVID, men were so good, or most men were so good at keeping that part of their life separate and not bringing it to work. But women are always seen as mothers I remember one time I joined a company and I was told not to put pictures of my family on my desk because my company will think that I am a distracted employee. And it's actually happened. And to have more things that made me look like quotes from work, quotes from motivation, and not picture of my children. Of course, I did it anyway. I didn't care. But it is the stigma there. So what I will say to the companies is create an open work environment where it doesn't matter what is it that you do after work or before work, but that you create a safe space where people can acknowledge what they do outside of work and are comfortable sharing amongst each other what they do outside of work. That employee is who they are because of who they are in all of the different facets of their life. So when you hire an employee, you're hiring them with everything that they bring to the table. Because, and I say this all the time, I became a better leader when I became a mother. When I became a mother, I started understanding different sides of me, different sides of my employees that I didn't have the empathy to understand. And there was a lot of regret and shame that I had to work through that. But it is important that side of me allowed me to create skills that made me a better leader for my team. So by you shutting down and not allowing that balance to exist can be an issue. Companies should focus more on when you get the work done. The other thing is this. There's times you're a mother, believe me. I work a West Coast schedule and I have a small child and I have to balance daycare with picking up my daughter with all these different things, right? There's times that once the kids go to sleep at 8 p.m. is the time that I can actually get work done. Right? The meetings are over, people are quiet. So allow your employee to work when they need to work, as long as the work gets done. And make sure that you make extremely clear what meetings are non-negotiable. Hey, these meetings are non-negotiables that you have to attend. Because at the end of the day, it's still a livelihood that we have to pay for. So that's my recommendation for companies. Make sure that you're clear on what meetings are non-negotiable. Allow your employees to show up at work as their full self and know that who they are outside of work is what makes that employee that you hire that is so awesome be who they are. You can't separate the two.
Yeah, that's perfect. I actually also heard one idea in some podcast. I think they were saying that until you become a mother or parent, you don't know time management, and when you get to that stage, you learn how to manage so many things more efficiently. So it's like it's better to hire these people because they know how to value time.
And some days it's not efficiently. Now, this is for the employee, right? You have to be okay with not being 100% of everything for all the different aspects of your life every single day. Some days I am 100% of an employee and I am scoring 100, A+. Some days I'm scoring A+ as a parent and B+ as an employee. Or as a wife, I am a B+ and maybe tomorrow I'll be an A+. But it's gonna be really hard for you to try to be perfect and be 100% present at the same time on all different facets of your life. So juggling becomes very important, but you cannot do everything at the same time. And you're not going to be amazing at all of it at the same time. And I say this all the time because I do remember that there are times I have to go to the soccer game. And during that soccer game, there's a meeting that just popped on my calendar. I have to let my manager know, I'm sorry, this soccer game has been scheduled for weeks. I can't join this meeting. I have someone who can replace me. But in that moment, I didn't score 100% as an employee, but I score 100% as a mother. So you're going to have to balance it. There's going to be times that I can't make the soccer game. And it breaks my heart, but you have to forgive yourself. I think that in this society, in this world, we're trying so hard to please so many people that we stretch ourselves thin and then wonder why we have so many mental health issues in many countries. And it's because the demands from 50 years ago are not the demands from now, and we're constantly trying to meet them. And it's okay for you not to be able to please everyone and everything at the same time.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I like this. Our next question goes, again, I guess, from the people who, especially when COVID started and people started working remotely, they got scared that they don't show up as effective and they work all the time. So the question is, like, how can I encourage remote employees to take regular breaks and manage their workload and don't worry about being online all the time and like working more and more?
And we're talking all the topics that I'm like passionate about. I would say if you're trying to be, so there is actual studies that show that remote workers take less breaks than hybrid workers and that actually in-person workers. So remote workers, and I know that many remote workers that are listening to us, there's a war, right? There's the people that can't work remote. It's like, shut up. You're working from your pajamas. Don't be a baby, right? And there's the people that are actually working from the pajamas that are like, I am spent. I am exhausted. I woke up, put my pajamas on, being on this computer, and haven't been able to take a shower till it's like late at night, right? So the grass always looks greener on the other side, right? Like when you have to go to the office, you're like, and then some of us remote are like, I wish I was at the office, right? So you're like, there's a balance. But if you are that worker that is trying to overly compensate and overly be present at work, stop now. Stop. You're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to bring your best self at work. You won't be able to really show up as the leader that you are and as the employee that you are because you're trying to please perception of what you should be doing. So it's very crucial. I'm going to bring a personal thing for me. So when I work at Microsoft, the hours are West Coast. And for the first year of Microsoft, I remember having people, and I live in the East Coast. So that means that my workday starts at noon, most likely, and ends at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. So when that was happening, I had people that will tell me in the West Coast that they didn't even know that I was in the East Coast. And I was extremely burned out from 2 ears throwing smoke out of my ears because I was trying so hard for no one to know that I was in a different time zone. And I was trying to show up as a mother, an employee, and all of these other things. And I was burnt out. So what I'm saying to you is that led me to a conversation with my manager, which was a great conversation, of I needed to understand his expectations of me and set up clear boundaries where I was like, if it's after this time, I will not be unless it's an emergency call. I am okay with being late during peak times, but during the rest of the day and the year, I am going to be working earlier than everybody else. And just having that perception and that conversation changed the conversation, right? Because now when I am at work, I am showing up as my full self and I am not trying to use all these different demands. So with that, I say, you need to stop right away, talk to your leader, and understand on a regular basis what is the expectation that they have for you. And how can you meet those expectations? Something that I am a little allergic on is when cultures are very heavy on perceptions, right? But perception is reality. So the best thing about perceptions, which I hate, personally hate, because it's not tangible, it's a thought that I can't touch, right? The best thing about perceptions is that they can be changed. All that you need to do with a perception is 5 behaviors. If someone had a thought of you and it's like, oh my God, this person always wears red. She always comes with red to the office, right? And then you have people calling you red, right? Like, Wear a different color 5 more times, and that perception will go away. So if it's whether, oh my God, they're always late in meetings, don't be late, right? If it's like, oh my God, I'm overworked, they don't know that I'm working, I need to prove myself. You don't need to do that. Also, there's a lot of great tools like Teams, like Slack, that allow you to put messages on your Connect, right? So you can say, hey, I am not available, or do not disturb. Do not disturb is my favorite, because do not disturb means that right now I am doing something and I will not receive any calls, but I am doing something work related. That is a very important boundary that you need to set up with your team and verbalize that. Last but not least, there's a Harvard study that people that take breaks in between meetings have a better work-life balance, and they also have better quality of life, but they're more focused on meetings and they pay attention more. So it doesn't matter if you have a meeting that is an hour. Start a meeting 10 minutes later. That gives someone a break between the last meeting and this meeting. Or right in between a meeting, say, hey, let's take a 5-minute break. Even if it's a 1-hour meeting, it will change the dynamic of the meeting. And at times, we are so afraid of giving a 5-minute break. I really don't understand. I appreciate a 5-minute break. It lets me go to the bathroom, get some water, do all these different things, right? But it's like almost like, don't give a 5-minute break. And people will tell you, hey, I don't want to take the 5-minute break. I can keep going. It's like, yeah, we're still going to take the 5-minute break to allow the conversation to flow, to allow the thoughts to come better, right? Like whatever it is that you have to say, but be the enforcer of that work-life balance and have very open conversations with your leader on that.
Yeah. I think it's very important for people to actually talk to each other as well, because I used to have colleagues who would be like, let's just block out the whole day and work together on this project on an 8-hour call. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. Like, I just can't.
No. That's like read a room. No one wants to be on an 8-hour call just like listening to you breathing.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's anything anybody takes from any of these messages in this call, is please stop the 8-hour working together sessions. If any manager listens to me on anything that I say, is stop the 8 hours on an invite, everybody working together, recording each other. Like, just like, for 8, like, please stop. That is so draining. When you are in a meeting, in an offsite for 8 hours, people put together a schedule, detailed agenda. There is a lunch break. There is a bathroom break. All these things are happening. When you're asking an employee, Zoom fatigue is real. When you're asking an employee to sit on a computer for 8 hours, looking at each other, whether there's camera on or camera off, it is a draining activity. You're basically tying them to a desk. I would love for someone to tell me that, hey, I'm super productive when that happens. Great, that is you. You should not force an entire team of people to do that. I'm a huge believer in that.
Well, and I think if you have someone like this in your team, make sure you send them this video, because we've all been there. It's
Please
horrible.
send them this video. And I love them, right? We love them. But I do know, for example, I have, extroverted family members that will love that. If I can't go to the office to see you, we can all do a group and get together, right? Like extroverted people will thrive. Yeah. As a fellow introvert, a side of me will slowly die if you have me for 8 hours staring at your beautiful face. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Yes.
And I think just to wrap up this video, what would you say the best 3 tips you can give to someone who is just starting to work in a hybrid work environment?
If you just start working in a hybrid work environment, establish early what are the days that everyone goes into the office, so you can be in the office when other people are in the office. If you just started working in a hybrid work environment, get a clear expectation that you're going to write down and send an email back to your manager of your expectations your manager has for you in terms of your work hours and your time. And you can send that email back in a non-threatening way and be like, hey, I just want to keep this, or maybe send a message back on Teams like, hey, I'm going to put this notes on Teams right quick so I don't forget. But get a clear expectation so you can understand what is expected of you and when you're expected to go into the office. And take your time to learn the company culture, right? Like in this world, we're no longer expecting people to stay in a company for 10 years. We're lucky if we get employees to stay with us for 2 years. And good companies and people that hire the best in the industry know this. and they want to make sure that we're hiring people that I want to hire someone that could get another job in 2 years. That means I have someone that is thriving, that is ambitious, that wants more. So take your time, take this 2-3 years, learn the company, see if this is where you want to get. And if you want to stay here 10 years, stay. And if it's a great work experience where you're going next, enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Karol. I think it was useful for me, so I'm sure it was for everyone else.